Hey everyone, welcome back to Empowering Your Health with Integrative Medicine. Today we're going to start talking about anti-inflammatory diets and how to create a healthier diet for yourself and those you love. Now this is a cornerstone of the work that I do with my own patients, so we're going to dive right in. What is an anti-inflammatory diet? Well, it is a healthy way of eating that includes whole foods, healthy proteins, healthy sources of fat, lots of colorful plant-based foods such as nuts, beans, fruits, berries, vegetables, etc. Foods that are really full of nutrients and fiber and good things that your body needs to function optimally. The foods that we include in an anti-inflammatory diet are nutritious, they're vibrant, and they are full of great energy that your body can use to do its absolute best. We minimize or completely take out processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and sugars or added sugars. We don't want those things gumming up our system. And while there are many variations to this theme, for example, one patient might be a vegetarian or a vegan, whereas another patient might prefer more of a protein-based approach or a ketogenic diet, we always start with the basics and then adapt the diets as needed for each patient and their preferences. As an added bonus, at the end of our video, I'm going to include information on the diet that I recommend most commonly for my own patients to get them started on anti-inflammatory eating. So why do we need an anti-inflammatory diet anyway? Well, because our typical diets in our culture are full of way too many ingredients that drive inflammation and way too few ingredients that reduce inflammation in our bodies. Now, acute inflammation is actually an important and healthy process that our bodies need to function properly. We use acute inflammation and an acute inflammatory response to do things like fight off infection or to repair tissues after we get a cut or after we have surgery, for example. But we want the inflammatory process in our body to be well balanced. We want to be able to turn on the fire of inflammation when we need it and turn it off when we don't need it anymore. And it's the turning off process that goes awry in a lot of patients, in a lot of people, in our culture, because of our lifestyles, the way that we live our lives every day. Whether it's high stress, lack of exercise, lack of proper sleep, or, very commonly, a pro-inflammatory diet, these are things that can contribute to that smoldering underlying inflammation that we can't really turn off. And it's that inability to turn off inflammation that causes trouble. So when we get into the state of chronic inflammation, that's where we are driving more disease states like heart disease, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune disease, chronic pain, and even cancer. So you can see that it's very important for us to become aware of what we're doing that is pro-inflammatory in our lives so we can start making changes. Now, the Western diet, our typical American diet, has been studied extensively, and we know the ingredients that cause trouble and cause chronic inflammation in our bodies. And these are things that we take for granted that we have all the time in our pantries and our cupboards. So snack foods that you might be feeding your kids, little crackers that look like animals or goldfish or cheesy snacks and popcorns and cookies and things like that. Even granola bars and cereal bars that kind of give us a sense that they might be healthy. Those are things that are very common in our pantry that absolutely help drive inflammation on a very regular daily basis. So when we're looking at the ingredients of a typical Western diet that drive inflammation, they include sugar, refined carbohydrates, high glycemic foods that spike the blood sugar, processed foods, which are typically high in salt, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and trans fats. We're looking at unhealthy fats like those trans fats or hydrogenated oils, which are fake oils made from real oil with chemical changes. but we're also looking at things like deep fried foods, high omega-6 fats in our snack foods, and processed meats, whether it's deli meats that have a lot of salt in them and preservatives, or things like bacon or industrial raised foods. Now, inflammation also has to do with the lack of specific nutrients in our diets, and those are things that can contribute to inflammation. So lack of a good source of omega-3 is a very common cause of inflammation in the American diet. Few vitamins and minerals, and also low fiber content. We do have lots of empty calories in our diets in America, and this is a hallmark of convenience-based eating. Even the snack foods that we give our kids or the treats that we pick up at our favorite coffee houses are just full of empty calories. So from my perspective, it's not really a big deal if you're having some treats occasionally. You go to a birthday party and you have a cupcake, that's not a big deal. But it's when this becomes a chronic, repetitive daily habit, the way that we typically reach for foods in our cupboards, that we are contributing in a real way to ongoing inflammation and creating problems. As I said, many of these kinds of foods that are low in nutrients are actually what I would call empty calories. And it's kind of like you have a great car, that's your body, and you want to fill it up with high quality gas, but instead of that, you're giving it air or giving it water. It doesn't have what your body needs to function properly. And then some of those foods, some of the things that we mentioned before, like hydrogenated oils, when you eat that way, when you're including those foods, it's more like you're putting glue in your gas tank. So you're really gumming up the system and making it harder and harder for your body to function normally because you're creating more and more inflammation. Our bodies don't actually get the nutrients that they need for good health, and we are creating a low level of that smoldering underlying inflammation that goes on to create more disease. And in this country, we call this the standard American diet or the SAD diet. And it is sad because it does drive chronic inflammation and disease. We know that. So the remedy for this, and what I spend a lot of time working on with patients, is to take an honest look at your own diet and to start making changes that move you towards a healthier whole foods diet. The first thing that can really help, and a big part of our intake when I meet for the first time with patients, is to look at someone's daily routine. So you can do this yourself. You can kind of write down, what does my daily routine look like? And be completely honest with yourself. What time do you wake up? Are you exhausted when you wake up? Grab something sugary for breakfast to give you some energy, or grab extra cups of coffee to give you energy. How do you feel? And then how do you eat through the day? Most people are creatures of habit. We have certain ways of doing things, and this can be a very useful exercise. I would say there are some patients that I have that really have very unstructured schedules, and they can be a bit harder at first because first things first, we've got to get some kind of a structure in place to help them know, here's a good time to have breakfast, here's a good time to have a snack, etc., to kind of create routine in their days. But one of the most important things that we do when we talk about this approach is we start with breakfast. And breakfast is really whenever you break your fast, because breakfast means breaking your fast. So even if you're someone who eats kind of later, you wait to have kind of an early lunch, that's going to be your first meal of the day, and that can really start your day off in one way or another. One of the biggest setups for a day of poor eating really is an unbalanced, high glycemic, nutrient poor breakfast. And we're going to give a great example of that next. So I'm reminded of a recent patient, very typical of the kinds of patients that I see with a pro-inflammatory diet. And this guy was pretty young. He was in his early 30s. He had a very physically demanding job, and he also had a side business, so his own business that he was running in addition to working all day. He was highly motivated, but he really didn't feel well. And he was very fatigued, had some digestive issues, and lots of musculoskeletal pain. Mostly, he attributed this to years of physical work, but honestly not normal for a man his age and in the shape that he was in. So to me, one of the big red flags here was that he was coming in with a lot of fatigue, and I knew right away we were going to have to look at his lifestyle and where it was pro-inflammatory, including what was in his diet that was causing problems and what was lacking from his diet that could have improved his symptoms. So when we looked at his lifestyle in particular and we looked at his diet, what we saw was he was waking up really early to do work for his side business. He would spend a couple of hours working on the books, and this was a time of pretty significant stress for him each day. And then he'd quickly get ready for work and he'd run out the door. He'd be super hungry and he'd grab a convenient breakfast on his way to his job. And that was typically a bagel or a donut, a granola bar, a cereal bar, or something like that. And if he was feeling really tired on a given day, when he stopped for that food, he would grab a sugary coffee to kind of wake him up and give him an extra boost. Then he would go on to work, physically demanding job, and within like an hour or two, he'd be starving. So he'd be reaching for snacks. He was literally packing his bag for the day with just snacks. So super processed potato chips and pretzels and cookies and candy. And I mean, it was like a vending machine in there. So he would be snacking all day through the day. And he was just grabbing whatever he could for quick, easy snacks to help fuel him. All this while doing a very physically demanding job. So I explained to him that it was like he was filling his gas tank with $1 worth of gas at a time, instead of really filling the whole tank up and working for the day from that perspective. So looking at his pattern of eating, this is a very typical high glycemic, pro-inflammatory way of eating. As soon as he has that bagel in the morning, which is full of refined carbohydrates, what happens is his blood sugar was spiking, his insulin was kicking in, bringing his blood sugar down sharply. That decrease in blood sugar makes you really hungry. And so he was starving. He had to grab the next high glycemic food to get his blood sugar up. And then same pattern. It was coming down with insulin. Up, down, through the whole day. And this is what I call the Sawtooth pattern of eating. And we talk about this a lot with patients. I've always said to my patients that you start the day with a bagel, you're going to end the day with a bagel, because you're going to be doing this all day long. Your body's looking for the nutrients. It's looking for the protein and the fat and the healthy fiber to stop that pattern of eating, but it's not getting satisfaction. So you're going to continue eating this way all day. So for this patient, by the end of the day, he was exhausted. He would stop on his way home, pick up fast food or takeout, or he'd just go home and have a bowl of cereal or a peanut butter sandwich on white bread. And really, this whole pattern of eating was what was driving his fatigue and his pain and some of his digestive issues. So, like I do with all patients, we looked at his pattern and then we addressed his trouble spot. And for him, the most important thing to do was to change his breakfast. And this is a pretty common good place to start if you don't know where else to start. So in his case, we opted for something that was very easy to do every day because he was reaching for something convenient. And we gave him a very high quality meal replacement shake that he would make at home, plant-based. It's loaded with protein and fiber and vitamins and minerals to help empower his day. And these were ingredients that he really wasn't getting anyplace else in his diet. So it was a good low glycemic way to start his day. And he did great with this because it would just gently raise up his blood sugar and keep him kind of steady throughout the day until he could eat a healthier lunch. It took away his desire to snack. It was just absolutely the right fit for him. Now, we also taught him to read labels. You can learn a lot from reading the labels of the foods that you're eating. And you can tell whether a food is a real food or whether it's like a processed food just from reading labels. And I'd encourage you to start doing this in the grocery store. So if the label that you're reading has foods that you recognize, like peanuts, cranberries, etc., you're good, right? But if the label that you're reading has more than 3 or 4 ingredients in it, if they are long and unpronounceable words, and if they include terms like natural flavors or colors, these are all markers that what you're eating is highly processed, okay? Highly processed foods are going to include things like high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, and cheap vegetable oil. So we typically think vegetables are good, right? So vegetable oil must be good, but they're not. They're very pro-inflammatory, the ones that are used in processed foods, because they're cheap. And they're cheap for the manufacturer, but they're not cheap for you because they're going to drive inflammation in your body. And those are oils like palm oil, soybean oil, rapeseed oil, etc. There's lots of added salt in processed foods, and these are all the ingredients that drive inflammation. And I would say extra important is to know that 2 of the big players here are sugar and salt, because they don't just drive inflammation, but they drive craving. So they set you up for that kind of sawtooth quick eating and grabbing another one of those snack foods that you have on hand. So when I was working with this patient to show him how to read labels, we started with his peanut butter, because he was eating, remember, sometimes for dinner, just a peanut butter sandwich on white bread. And so I said, okay, what kind of peanut butter do you use? And it's funny because it was actually the peanut butter I grew up on, but it's not real peanut butter. It's a peanut butter spread. So when you look at the label of your peanut butter, if you're someone who eats peanut butter, I want you to look at the actual label. So in his case, the peanut butter ingredients read, made from roasted peanuts. So the first ingredient was peanuts. Sugar, so there's sugar. 2% or less of molasses. Molasses is sugar. So we have peanuts, sugar, and sugar. Fully hydrogenated vegetable oils. Those are those pro-inflammatory, unhealthy fats. So now we have peanuts, sugar, unhealthy fat, and then mono and diglycerides, more sugar, and salt. So we've got sugar, bad fats, and salt. And that is the marker of a pro-inflammatory peanut butter. I would actually not call it peanut butter. I would call it a peanut spread. Now, when you look at a peanut butter jar, the only ingredients should be peanuts or peanuts and salt. That's it. And so he was able to replace that. And he also replaced his bread, which was a white bread, very refined, no fiber, with a healthier brand of bread that included good fiber content and protein. So he was able to use that information to actually make changes in his own diet and to elevate his peanut butter sandwich, which made a big difference for him. And this is something that anyone can do. We can all elevate our snacks and our meals. The other thing that we think about when we think about whether we're eating real food or fake food is that real food looks like it comes from nature, okay? And fake food doesn't. Fake food is in packages, and when you look at it, it does not look like it grows in a field or on a tree or anyplace else. Is a simple thing to ask yourself is, does this food look like it comes from nature? So a cookie, not really, okay? There's no cookie trees. An apple, yes, absolutely, looks like it comes from nature. Now, sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference because packaged food companies are trying to get you to buy what you think is healthy. So store-bought applesauce, you really have to look at the label. You have to see. It could say it's natural, but include high fructose corn syrup, and that's not going to be something that you actually want to eat. You're much better off making your own applesauce, which is just apples and a little bit of sugar and some cinnamon. Another example would be fruit cups. Is that the same thing as making a fruit salad? Not really. Same reason as the applesauce. We're looking at oatmeal. So instant oatmeal, people think is going to be healthy. It's loaded with sugar. So you want to really look at those labels and start thinking of ways to elevate the food that you're eating. And we're going to talk much more about that in our upcoming video. So with our patient, we also provided some extra nutrients for him. We gave him a high quality omega-3 because he really was not getting any healthy sources of fish in his diet. And omega-3 is extremely important for damping down inflammation. And for him, we also knew that he had a low vitamin D level, so we gave him a vitamin D supplement. Now, when he came back, he was doing great. He had much better energy. His joints weren't hurting. His muscles felt better. He was more empowered. And he just wanted to continue doing this work. It was a great start. We have more to do, but it was an example of a great success. So, quick summary. When we're talking about moving towards an anti-inflammatory diet, we know that there are great health benefits to doing this. But step one for anybody is to get to know your own patterns. Take your inventory. Where are you starting from? A good way to start is just go through your day and identify where's your problem area. Are you someone who starts off your day with an unhealthy breakfast? Or do you kind of do great until that afternoon lull when you're hungry and you start eating lots of snacks before dinner? Or are you someone who kind of stays up late and starts snacking late at night and are gaining weight, that kind of thing? Like, where is your problem spot? And you want to start there when you're making changes to your diet. But also, when in doubt, start with breakfast. Try to elevate your breakfast and your snacks. That can be a great way of moving towards a more anti-inflammatory way of eating. Step 2 is learn to read labels. Pick one of your favorite foods and look at the label. Read it. And try to read the ingredients out loud. So if you can't pronounce them, then you're probably better off not putting those into your body, right? And the whole idea of this is not to say, oh my gosh, you can never have this food, but it's really to just start becoming aware of what it is that you're putting into your body. And that helps us, that simple act of becoming aware, helps us become more open to considering healthy options. And then when you're ready, when you're really ready, kind of the advanced class is to clean out your pantry and your fridge and kind of get rid of those foods so that they're not even on hand and they're not an easy go-to for you. And then step 3 is to set yourself up for success. So stock up on healthy options, things that are ready to go. So if you're hungry for a snack, you've got a great option right there in the refrigerator, whether it's carrots and hummus or apples and peanut butter or whatever it is, that it's an easy go-to solution for you. Start by elevating your breakfast and your snacks. Nourish yourself with whole foods that are low glycemic and high in fiber, foods that have healthy sources of protein and fat and are nutrient dense. We're going to be talking much more about how to build a healthy plate in our part 2 video of an anti-inflammatory diet. But for now, today's bonus, I'm going to provide a link for the Andrew Weil Anti-Inflammatory Diet and Pyramid. And this is the resource that I start with for most patients. I have them print it out, put it on their refrigerator, keep it in their purse or their bag when they're going grocery shopping. It's just a reference to give them some ideas of some of the healthy foods that they could include in their diet when they're not sure where to go. It's a great resource to just get things started, to get the conversation started. This particular diet is based on the Mediterranean diet, which is the diet that has the most data for health benefits and healthy outcomes, bar none. Okay, so it's a great place to start. And then, of course, we individualize for each patient. So, more about that in our next video on anti-inflammatory diet. But for now, I'm Dr. Andrea Fasati, MD. I'm an integrative physician and a board-certified internist, and I'm here to help you empower your health. Here's to you.